The auditorium buzzed with excitement as the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. And the winner of the National Young Innovators Challenge is Jonathan Hayes. The crowd erupted into applause, but 10-year-old Logan Bennett sat frozen in his seat. His hands clenched the edges of his chair, and his heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't supposed to happen. Logan had spent months perfecting his invention, a solar-powered water purifier for communities without access to clean drinking water. It wasn't just a project to him. It was his mission. He had tested every component, triple-checked every calculation, and poured every ounce of his being into it. But now, as Jonathan, a polished 14-year-old with a perfectly rehearsed smile, strode up to the stage to collect the trophy, Logan's world crumbled. "You'll get them next time, buddy," his father said, patting him on the back. The words barely registered. Logan wasn't looking for next time. He wanted this time. As the ceremony wrapped up, Elon Musk, one of the event's guest judges, stepped onto the stage to give closing remarks. Dressed in his signature black blazer, Musk's presence commanded the room. "Innovation isn't about winning or losing," he began, his voice calm but firm. "It's about resilience, about learning from every setback and coming back stronger." Logan stared at Musk with a mix of frustration and awe. "Easy for you to say," he thought. "You're already at the top." After the crowd began to disperse, Logan couldn't hold back any longer. He stood up abruptly, his small frame trembling with anger and determination. "This isn't over," he shouted, his voice echoing across the room. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Even Elon Musk paused, his gaze settling on the fiery young boy in the back row. Logan's cheeks flushed, but he didn't back down. Musk raised an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement in his expression. "That's quite the attitude," he said, addressing Logan directly. "Care to back it up?" Logan's pulse quickened. He hadn't expected to be called out like this, but he wasn't about to retreat now. "You'll see," he said, his voice steady despite the lump in his throat. "I'm going to make something so incredible, you'll regret not paying attention to me today." Musk smiled faintly, nodding as if to say, "We'll see about that." As Logan left the auditorium, his fists still clenched, a million thoughts raced through his mind. He didn't know how he was going to prove himself, but one thing was certain: he wasn't going to stop until he did. The drive home was quiet, but Logan's thoughts were anything but. Back in his room that night, he pulled out his sketchbook and flipped to a blank page. He scribbled one word at the top: revenge. Below it, he began sketching an idea that would change everything. Logan sat cross-legged on his bedroom floor, the soft glow of his desk lamp casting shadows across the walls. The word revenge stared back at him from the top of his sketchbook page, but as his pencil hovered over the paper, he paused. Was it really about revenge? He closed his eyes and thought about the competition, about the smirks and whispers he'd overheard from the older contestants. "He's just a kid," one of them had said. "No way he can compete with us." Their words stung, but more than anything, they fueled him. Logan wasn't going to let anyone underestimate him again. "This isn't about proving them wrong," he thought, taking a deep breath. "It's about proving myself right." With renewed focus, Logan began to sketch. He drew the outline of a new device, one that combined solar energy with advanced filtration technology. This time, it wouldn't just purify water. It would store it, monitor its quality, and even send alerts when maintenance was needed. It wasn't just an improvement on his previous design. It was a revolution. Hours slipped by as Logan worked. His fingers smudged the paper with graphite as he filled page after page with diagrams and calculations. His mind buzzed with ideas, each one building on the last. "Logan," his dad's voice called from downstairs. "It's past midnight. Time to sleep." Logan jolted, realizing how late it had gotten. He quickly shoved his sketchbook under his bed, not ready to share his plans just yet. "Coming, Dad," he yelled back, though his heart wasn't in it. As he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Logan replayed the moment Elon Musk had looked directly at him. Musk's words echoed in his mind. "Care to back it up?" "I will," Logan thought, clenching his fists under the blanket. "I'll back it up, and then some." The next morning, Logan sat at the breakfast table, his head still swimming with ideas. His mom placed a plate of scrambled eggs in front of him, her eyebrows knitting together in concern. "You look tired, honey. Didn't sleep well?" "I'm fine," Logan mumbled, poking at his eggs. His dad glanced over the top of his newspaper. "You're still thinking about that competition, aren't you?" Logan stiffened but didn't reply. His dad sighed, folding the paper and setting it down. "Look, Logan, I know you're upset, but you gave it your best shot. Sometimes that's all you can do." Logan's grip tightened around his fork. "It wasn't my best," he said quietly. "I can do better." His dad opened his mouth to respond, but Logan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "I have to get ready for school," he said, grabbing his backpack and heading for the door. As he walked to the bus stop, Logan's mind raced. He needed resources, materials, tools, maybe even help. But where could he find them? His school's science lab was limited, and his family didn't have the money to buy what he needed. He was still lost in thought when he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning, he saw Maya Turner, his classmate and the school's top coder, grinning at him. "Hey, Logan," she said. "I heard about the competition. Tough break." Logan bristled, ready to defend himself, but Maya held up her hands. "Relax, I'm not here to rub it in. Actually, I was kind of impressed." Logan frowned. "Impressed? I didn't even win." Maya shrugged. "Maybe not, but you stood up to Elon Musk. That takes guts. Besides, I saw your project. It was good, really good." Logan's face softened. "Thanks," he said, though his tone was wary. Maya tilted her head, studying him. "You're not giving up, are you?" "Not a chance," Logan said firmly. Maya's grin widened. "Good, because I might know a way to help." Logan's eyes widened as Maya leaned in and whispered, "There's something you need to see after school. Meet me at the computer lab. Trust me, you're going to want to be there." Logan spent the rest of the school day trying to decipher what Maya meant. He barely paid attention in class, his mind spinning with possibilities. Maya Turner wasn't the type to joke about something like this. If she said there was something he needed to see, then it had to be serious. The final bell rang, and Logan bolted out of his chair, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He made his way to the computer lab, his heart pounding. When he arrived, Maya was already there, typing furiously on her laptop. The glow of the screen reflected off her glasses, giving her an air of intensity. "You made it," she said, not looking up. "What's this about?" Logan asked, setting his bag down. Maya turned the laptop toward him, revealing a complex diagram of interconnected nodes and blueprints. At the center of it all was a logo he instantly recognized: Starlink. Logan's eyes widened. That's Elon Musk's satellite network. What are you doing with this?" Maya smirked. "Relax, it's not like I hacked into SpaceX or anything. This is public domain. I've been studying Starlink for months, and I realized something." She tapped the screen. "These satellites? They're insanely powerful, but they're underutilized. Most people only think of them as a way to provide internet to remote areas, but they can do so much more." Logan leaned in, intrigued despite himself. "Like what?" "Like processing data," Maya said. "Massive amounts of data. If you could connect to their system, even just temporarily, you could run simulations, test designs, and even control automated machinery." Logan's jaw dropped. "You're saying we could use Starlink to build anything?" "Not exactly," Maya said, "but we could use it to accelerate your project. I saw your water purifier design at the competition. It's brilliant, but it's missing something: data optimization. Starlink could help with that." Logan frowned. "But how would we even connect to it? It's not like Musk is just going to hand us access." Maya's smirk returned. "That's the tricky part. We'd need to create a relay, a way to piggyback on the network without raising red flags. I've already started working on the code, but it's going to take both of us to pull this off." Logan hesitated, his mind racing. This was risky, maybe even illegal, but the idea of using Elon Musk's own technology to outdo him was too tempting to ignore. "I'm in," he said finally. Maya grinned. "I thought you'd say that." Over the next few hours, the computer lab became their war room. Maya worked on refining the code while Logan sketched out adjustments to his water purifier design. They whispered back and forth, their excitement growing with each breakthrough. By the time the janitor came to lock up the school, they had a plan. "Meet me at my house tomorrow," Logan said as they packed up their things. "We can finish the relay there." Maya nodded. "Got it. And Logan?" "Yeah, this is going to work. I can feel it." Logan smiled for the first time that day. "It has to." As Logan walked home, his phone buzzed with a notification. He glanced at the screen and froze. It was an email from the National Young Innovators Challenge with the subject line, "A special message from Elon Musk." Logan's hands trembled as he tapped the notification. The email opened, and there it was, an official message from the National Young Innovators Challenge, complete with Elon Musk's signature at the bottom. Subject: A special message from Elon Musk. "Dear Logan Bennett, I noticed your energy and determination at the competition. While you didn't take home the trophy, your passion for innovation stood out. I admire your drive and believe it's worth nurturing. I'd like to extend an invitation for you to visit the Tesla R&D campus in Austin, Texas, this weekend. Consider it an opportunity to explore, learn, and perhaps show me more of what you're capable of. Looking forward to seeing what you can bring to the table. Best regards, Elon Musk." Logan blinked, reading the email twice to make sure he wasn't imagining it. His heart raced. Elon Musk wants to meet me? But just as quickly as excitement filled him, doubt crept in. Why now? Was this a genuine opportunity, or just a polite way of patting him on the head and sending him on his way? He forwarded the email to Maya with a single line. "Thoughts?" Maya replied almost instantly. "Maya, are you kidding? This is huge. You have to go." Logan: "What if it's just a courtesy thing? He probably sends these to a bunch of kids." Maya: "Even if he does, it's still access to his inner circle. Imagine what you could learn. You'd be crazy not to take this chance." Logan stared at the screen, his stomach churning. Maya was right, but part of him felt like this was some kind of test, a way for Musk to see if Logan would back down or step up. He gritted his teeth. "I'll show him I'm serious." The next morning, Logan's parents were equally stunned when he told them about the email. His mom clutched her coffee mug, her eyes wide. "Elon Musk personally invited you? That's incredible." His dad, however, looked skeptical. "This isn't some kind of scam, is it? Did you verify the email?" "I checked the address," Logan said, holding up his phone. "It's legit." His dad sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, if it's real, then this is a huge opportunity. But it's not going to be cheap flying to Texas on such short notice." "I can cover it with my savings," Logan said quickly. "This is too important to pass up." His mom reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure it out, sweetie. This could change everything for you." By Friday evening, Logan was boarding a plane to Austin, his backpack stuffed with sketches, notes, and a prototype of his water purifier. He barely slept during the flight, his mind buzzing with questions. What would the Tesla campus be like? Would Elon Musk even remember him? When the plane touched down, Logan was greeted by a sleek Tesla Model X waiting outside the airport. A driver stepped out, holding a sign with his name on it. "This is insane," Logan muttered under his breath as he climbed into the car. The drive to the Tesla campus was surreal. Towering buildings gleamed under the Texas sun, and workers bustled around, testing futuristic vehicles and other advanced tech. Logan's awe only grew as the car pulled up to the main building. Inside, a friendly receptionist escorted him to a conference room where a small group of engineers were gathered around a table. And there, at the head of the table, was Elon Musk himself. "Logan," Musk said, standing and extending a hand. "Glad you could make it." Logan swallowed hard, shaking Musk's hand. "Thanks for inviting me, sir." Musk motioned for him to sit. "I've been looking forward to this. So, what have you got for me?" Logan hesitated, his palms sweaty. This was it, the moment he dreamed of and dreaded. He reached into his bag, pulling out the prototype and his sketches. "This," he said, his voice steady despite his nerves, "is just the beginning." As Logan began his presentation, one of the engineers frowned, leaning forward. "Wait a minute," he said. "Where did you get this design?" Logan froze, his prototype halfway across the table. The words hung in the air like a slap. "Excuse me?" Logan asked, his voice trembling slightly. The engineer, a sharp-eyed man with graying hair, grabbed one of Logan's sketches and studied it intently. This design, he said, pointing to a key component of Logan's water purifier. It looks strikingly similar to a concept I worked on for SpaceX years ago. How did you get access to this? Logan blinked in disbelief. I didn't steal anything, he stammered. This is my original work. The room went silent. Elon Musk leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers as he observed the scene. His expression was unreadable, but the weight of his presence was crushing. Calm down, Doug, Musk said, finally breaking the silence. Let the kid explain. Doug, still skeptical, crossed his arms but leaned back slightly, giving Logan the floor. Logan cleared his throat, trying to steady his nerves. This is a design I've been working on for months. I didn't take it from anyone. I started with a basic filtration system and then integrated components to increase efficiency and sustainability. If there's a similarity, it's purely coincidental. Doug raised an eyebrow. Coincidental? The chances of independently arriving at this exact design are slim, at best. Musk raised a hand, silencing Doug. It's not impossible, though. Innovation often leads people down similar paths. Logan, can you walk us through your process? Logan nodded, grateful for the chance to prove himself. He began explaining his step-by-step process, starting from his initial inspiration, watching a documentary about water scarcity, and detailing every decision he'd made, including the trial-and-error phases. As he spoke, Musk leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. Doug, on the other hand, remained skeptical but said nothing. When Logan finished, Musk nodded thoughtfully. Interesting. It sounds like you've done your homework. And you're not just copying, you're innovating. I like that. Relief washed over Logan, but it was short-lived. Doug leaned forward again, his tone softer but still probing. Logan, you're clearly talented. But if you're serious about this, you need to understand something. Protecting intellectual property is crucial in this industry. Even if you didn't intend to infringe on someone else's work, you need to ensure your designs are unique and defensible. Logan met Doug's gaze. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes to prove this is my own work. Musk smiled faintly. That's the spirit. Now, let's move on. Tell me more about the practical applications of this purifier. How do you see it scaling? Logan launched into an explanation of how his design could be adapted for use in both urban and rural areas, with potential applications in disaster relief and developing countries. As he spoke, the tension in the room eased, and even Doug seemed impressed. After the meeting, Musk pulled Logan aside. You handled yourself well back there, Musk said. Not many people your age, or any age, could stand their ground like that. Logan smiled nervously. Thanks. It was intense. Musk chuckled. Welcome to the world of innovation. It's not for the faint of heart. Listen, I want to offer you something. Logan's breath caught. What kind of offer? I want you to join one of our mentorship programs, Musk said. It's designed for young innovators like you. You'll have access to resources, guidance, and the chance to develop your ideas alongside some of the best minds in the industry. Logan's heart soared. This was more than he'd ever dared hope for. But then he thought of Maya and their plan to piggyback on Starlink. Would accepting Musk's offer mean abandoning their project, or worse, exposing it? I need to think about it, Logan said finally. The next day, Logan returned to the Tesla campus for a follow-up meeting. This time, it was less formal, just a tour of the R&D facilities and some one-on-one time with a few of the engineers. As he walked through the sleek, futuristic labs, Logan couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and intimidation. This was the big leagues, a place where ideas became reality at lightning speed. During a break, Musk found him gazing at a prototype of a solar-powered vehicle. Beautiful, isn't it? Musk said, his voice startling Logan out of his thoughts. Yeah, Logan replied. It's incredible. Musk leaned against the workbench. You seem distracted. What's on your mind? Logan hesitated. He wanted to tell Musk about Starlink, about the plan he and Maya had spent countless nights refining. But something held him back, a nagging fear that Musk might dismiss it, or worse, take it over. Nothing, Logan said finally. Just a lot to process. Musk nodded knowingly. Innovation can be overwhelming. It's easy to get caught up in the big picture and forget why you started in the first place. The words hit Logan like a jolt. Was that what he was doing, losing sight of his original goal? That evening, Logan sat in his hotel room, staring at his laptop. He pulled up the pitch deck he and Maya had created for Starlink. The idea was solid, revolutionary even, but now it felt like a fragile dream compared to the opportunities Musk's mentorship program could offer. His phone buzzed. Another message from Maya. Any updates? Logan typed and erased several responses before finally replying. Not yet. I'm still figuring things out. Maya's reply came quickly. Don't overthink it. Just follow your gut. Logan frowned. His gut was torn in two. The next morning, during his final meeting with Musk, Logan gathered his courage. There's something I want to talk to you about, Logan said. Musk raised an eyebrow. Go on. Logan took a deep breath. It's an idea I've been working on with a friend. It's related to Starlink and has the potential to make a big impact. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Musk leaned forward, intrigued. I'm listening. Logan launched into the pitch, explaining how their idea could extend Starlink's capabilities to underserved communities and provide emergency connectivity during disasters. He tried to keep his voice steady, even as Musk's intense gaze scrutinized every word. When he finished, Musk sat back, his expression unreadable. It's ambitious, Musk said finally, and it's risky, but I like it. Logan's heart leapt. You do? Musk nodded. Yes, but it's not something you can do halfway. If you're serious about this, you'll need the right team, funding, and time. The mentorship program could help you get there, but only if you're willing to commit fully. Musk leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Logan's. So, Logan, what's it going to be? Are you ready to bet everything on this? Logan sat across from Elon Musk, his heart pounding in his chest. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Are you ready to bet everything on this? Everything in Logan's life had led to this moment. The late nights sketching out ideas with Maya, the relentless failures and breakthroughs, the sheer audacity of dreaming big. But now, staring at one of the most influential innovators in the world, he realized that this wasn't just about his ideas. It was about who he was willing to become. Logan hesitated. He thought of Maya, waiting anxiously for his decision. He thought of the countless people who could benefit from their idea. Families without access to education, communities cut off during disasters. He thought of the weight of Musk's offer, the doors it could open, and the strings it might attach. Logan straightened his posture and met Musk's gaze. I'm ready, but I want to do it my way, with the team I've already built. That includes my friend, Maya. Musk's lips curved into a faint smile. Loyalty. I respect that. But let me warn you, Logan, this industry doesn't always play fair. If you want to succeed, you'll have to fight for every inch. Are you sure your friend is ready for that? Logan nodded without hesitation. She's just as committed as I am. We've been in this together from the start. Musk tapped his fingers on the desk, considering. All right, here's what we'll do. I'll fund your project, on one condition. You'll be working under Tesla's wing, and I'll assign a mentor to guide you through the process. That means you'll still have control, but I'll expect results. Fast results. Logan swallowed hard. How fast are we talking? 6 months to get a functional prototype, Musk said. After that, we evaluate. If it's as promising as you say, we scale. If it's not, he shrugged, leaving the sentence unfinished. Later that evening, Logan called Maya from his hotel room. So, what's the verdict? She asked, her voice a mix of excitement and anxiety. Logan filled her in on Musk's offer, emphasizing the opportunity and the pressure. 6 months? Maya repeated. That's ambitious. But we've worked under pressure before. We can do this. Logan smiled. I knew you'd say that. But, Maya added, her tone turning serious, are you sure this is what you want? Once we're under Tesla's umbrella, things could change. They might expect us to compromise on our vision. I've thought about that, Logan admitted. But Musk seemed sincere about letting us take the lead. And if it means getting the resources we need to make this happen, it's worth the risk. Maya was quiet for a moment before she said, all right, let's do it. But let's promise each other one thing. No matter what happens, we stay true to why we started this. Deal, Logan said. The next few days were a whirlwind. Logan and Maya were flown out to Tesla's headquarters, where they were introduced to their mentor, a sharp-tongued but brilliant engineer named Dr. Alana Carter. Dr. Carter wasted no time setting the tone. "Let me be clear," she said during their first meeting. "I don't care how talented you think you are. In my lab, results speak louder than words. You've got 6 months to prove you belong here. Don't waste my time." Logan and Maya exchanged nervous glances but nodded. Over the next few weeks, the work began in earnest. They spent long hours refining their designs, running simulations, and troubleshooting endless problems. Dr. Carter's tough love approach pushed them to their limits, but it also forced them to think critically and innovate under pressure. Despite the grueling schedule, Logan found himself thriving. For the first time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be, on the cutting edge of something that could change the world. But as the weeks turned into months, cracks began to form. Maya grew increasingly frustrated with the constraints imposed by Tesla's bureaucracy. Meetings were delayed, approvals took forever, and every decision had to be run through multiple channels. "This isn't what we signed up for," Maya said one evening as they worked late in the lab. "I know," Logan said, trying to keep his voice calm, "but we knew there'd be compromises." "Compromises are one thing," Maya shot back. "But this? It's like they're trying to control every aspect of our project." Logan sighed. He couldn't deny that she had a point, but he also knew that without Tesla's backing, their dream might never get off the ground. That night, Logan received an encrypted email from an anonymous sender. The subject line read, "Be careful who you trust. Tesla doesn't play fair." Logan's blood ran cold as he stared at the message. Who had sent it? And what did it mean for their project? Logan stared at the message on his phone, his heart racing. The words burned into his mind. "Be careful who you trust. Tesla doesn't play fair." He refreshed the email multiple times, convinced he had missed something, but it was still there. An anonymous message with no trace of its origin. Who would send something like this? Logan muttered to himself. His mind began to spiral. Tesla had been everything they'd hoped for: access to resources, a team of brilliant engineers, and Musk's personal endorsement. But now, a seed of doubt had been planted. Could the company be hiding something darker? Was there a larger agenda at play that he wasn't seeing? Logan? Maya's voice broke through his thoughts. She was standing in the doorway of the lab, her brow furrowed in concern. "What's going on?" Logan didn't answer immediately. He simply held up his phone, showing her the email. Maya read it silently, her expression darkening. "This doesn't make sense. Who would want to sabotage us?" "I don't know," Logan replied, his mind racing, "but I can't shake the feeling that something's off. Tesla has been pushing harder than I expected, and now this." Maya took a deep breath, sitting down beside him. "You're right to be cautious, Logan, but we can't let paranoia take over. We have to focus on what we know, our project. We're on the verge of something big, and I don't want to lose sight of that." Logan nodded, but a part of him still felt uneasy. There were too many unknowns now. And yet, the possibility of everything they'd worked for slipping away haunted him. The next day, Logan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every time he entered Tesla's headquarters, the sense of scrutiny grew stronger. Dr. Carter's cool, distant demeanor seemed more like a mask, and he couldn't help but wonder if she had anything to do with the mysterious email. "You're looking a bit off today," Dr. Carter remarked as they worked on finalizing the design for the Starlink satellite system. "Everything all right?" Logan forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired. The work's been a lot lately." Dr. Carter didn't respond immediately. She simply watched him for a moment, then said, "You need to keep your head in the game. We're only months away from launch, and there's no room for mistakes." Logan nodded, but the weight of her words hung heavy in the air. There was something about her cold efficiency that unnerved him, like she was keeping secrets. That evening, Logan decided to follow up on the anonymous email. He dug through the Tesla database, trying to find any information that might explain the warning. But everything seemed above board. Nothing stood out. "Maybe I'm just overthinking this," Logan muttered, rubbing his temples. Maya walked in and raised an eyebrow at him. You've been at this for hours, Logan. You need a break. I just can't shake it, Logan replied, pushing away from the computer. That email, there's something behind it. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. Maya sighed. Look, I get it. Something doesn't sit right, but we can't fight shadows. We're already in too deep. Focus on what you can control. Logan ran a hand through his hair, frustration building. I don't want to just sit back and hope everything works out, Maya. If there's something wrong, we need to figure it out now, before it's too late. Maya stepped closer. All right, then let's do something. We need to find out who sent that email and why. The following day, Logan and Maya put their plan into motion. They began digging deeper into Tesla's internal communications, looking for any signs of irregularities. But their efforts didn't go unnoticed. That afternoon, Logan received another email, this time with an attached file. The subject line simply read, "You're on the right track." Logan clicked open the attachment, his breath catching in his throat as the file opened. It was a series of encrypted messages, one from Dr. Carter to an unknown recipient, discussing the details of their project. But buried within the messages was something far more troubling. References to taking control of the project and disposal of uncooperative elements. Logan's hands shook as he read the cryptic lines. It was clear that Dr. Carter wasn't working alone. There was a larger scheme at play. Maya walked in just as Logan was finishing reading the file. "What is it?" she asked, her voice tense. Logan looked up, his face pale. "It's worse than I thought. Dr. Carter's involved in something big. This email, this isn't just about our project. It's about something else entirely." Maya's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "The file, it's from Dr. Carter. She's talking about taking control of the project," and Logan stopped himself, his stomach churning. "It's not just business. It's personal." Maya's expression hardened. "We need to confront her. Now." The next day, Logan and Maya arranged a meeting with Dr. Carter. As they sat across from her, Logan's mind raced. They had to be careful. Any misstep could jeopardize everything. Dr. Carter regarded them both coolly, her eyes narrowing as she spoke. "So, you've figured it out, haven't you?" Logan's heart skipped a beat. "What is going on, Dr. Carter? What are you really after?" Dr. Carter leaned forward, her voice low. "You're more perceptive than I thought, Logan. But you're too late. The project has already been sold to someone else. You were just the stepping stones. Welcome to the real world of innovation." Logan's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, sold?" Logan sat frozen, the weight of Dr. Carter's words settling over him like a thick fog. "Sold?" he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean, sold?" Dr. Carter leaned back in her chair, her steely eyes never leaving Logan's. "You think you're the only ones who saw the potential of this project? You think Elon Musk was the only one with his eye on you? You're naive, Logan. This isn't just about the technology, it's about control. And you've been playing right into our hands." Maya's voice was tight with anger. "You've been manipulating us this whole time?" Dr. Carter's lips curled into a cold smile. "Not manipulating, guiding. You've made your contributions, and now you'll reap the rewards. But make no mistake, you're not in charge anymore." Logan felt his blood run cold. He'd known that business and innovation could be ruthless, but this was something else entirely. He had trusted Musk. He had trusted Tesla. And now, it felt like everything he had worked for was slipping through his fingers. "What have you done?" Logan asked, his voice low and controlled. "I've secured the project's future," Dr. Carter said smoothly. "The funding, the technology, the patents, it's all going to a much larger player than Tesla. And if you're smart, you'll stay out of the way. Because those who don't," she let the sentence hang in the air, unfinished, but the implication was clear. Logan's mind raced. Who else could be involved? Musk had promised them control. But if someone else had bought in, if the project had already been taken from them, where did that leave him and Maya? Maya stood abruptly, her fists clenched. "We can't just let her get away with this." Logan grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. "We need to think this through. We can't make any moves without knowing who we're really up against." Dr. Carter's expression shifted, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. "It's already too late for that. You'll find out soon enough. And when you do, You'll realize just how small you are in the grand scheme of things. Later that night, Logan couldn't sleep. The words Dr. Carter had said echoed in his mind. The project's future has been secured. What did that mean for him and Maya? What had they been working toward all this time if the project was already in the hands of someone else? He couldn't just sit back and let this happen. He had to find out who was behind it, who was pulling the strings. Logan paced around his hotel room, his thoughts racing. He thought about the anonymous emails he had received. They were starting to make more sense now. Someone had been trying to warn him. But who? And why had they waited until now? Suddenly, an idea struck him. What if there was a way to track down the person behind the emails? What if they could lead him to the truth? The next day, Logan met with Maya in the lab. She was already deep into research, combing through old data and files. "I've been digging into Carter's background," she said without looking up. "She's not just some engineer. She's got connections, serious ones. I found records linking her to a private firm called Vanter Technologies. They've been investing heavily in breakthrough innovations in satellite technology for years." Logan felt his pulse quicken. Vanter Technologies? Never heard of them. "They're not exactly public-facing," Maya replied, "but they have major financial backing, and their investments are tied to some of the biggest names in tech, including SpaceX." Logan's stomach dropped. SpaceX? If they're behind this, then everything we've been working for could be swallowed up by them. Maya nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I found a list of board members, and one of them is a former Tesla executive, someone who could have been involved in the decision to sell our project." Logan slammed his fist against the desk, frustration bubbling up inside him. This isn't just about innovation anymore. It's a power grab. Maya looked at him, her eyes hardening. "We're not backing down. We need to confront them, expose whatever deal was made." Logan and Maya spent the next few days gathering evidence, piecing together a timeline of events. They found an encrypted meeting transcript that had been leaked, an urgent conversation between Dr. Carter and someone identified only as JP. The conversation was filled with coded references, but it was clear that Vanter Technologies was taking a controlling stake in the project. The name JP kept cropping up, but no other details were available. Then, on the last line of the transcript, they found a chilling statement. "Make sure Logan Bennett and Maya Patel are out of the picture before the deal closes. No loose ends." Logan's blood ran cold. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. "What now?" Maya asked, looking up at him. Logan clenched his fists. "Now, we take this to the people who need to hear it. We expose the truth, no matter what it costs." But as they prepared to make their move, they were met with an unexpected twist. That evening, as Logan was about to send the damning evidence to a trusted journalist, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Stop what you're doing. It's already too late. The deal is done, and if you keep pushing, you'll regret it. There's nowhere to run." Logan stared at the message, his pulse racing. Was this a final warning? Or had they just triggered something far more dangerous? Logan's hand trembled slightly as he stared at the message. There's nowhere to run. It was like a chill had settled into his bones, a feeling that something far more sinister was lurking just beneath the surface. His mind raced. Who was behind this message? Was it a threat from Dr. Carter, or someone else entirely? Maya noticed his expression and quickly walked over to his side. "What is it?" she asked, her voice low. Logan turned the phone towards her, his voice barely a whisper. "It's a warning from someone, but I don't know who." Maya read the message, her brow furrowing. "This isn't just a random threat. Whoever sent this knows exactly what we're planning." Logan's mind spun. The idea of exposing the conspiracy had felt empowering just moments ago, but now, it seemed as though every move they made was being watched. They were no longer in control. "We can't back down now," Logan said, his voice firm. "If we don't expose this, it'll be over for us. They'll get away with it." Maya nodded, her jaw clenched with determination. "I agree, but we have to be careful. Whoever sent that message knows more than they're letting on." Logan thought for a moment. The last thing he wanted was for this to spiral out of control. But something inside him, something fierce and unyielding, told him that he couldn't back down. If they were going to have any chance of saving their work, they had to act now. The next day, Logan and Maya met with the journalist they had been in contact with. They had carefully chosen him, someone who had a reputation for exposing corporate corruption and powerful cover-ups. If anyone could help them take down Vander Technologies and Dr. Carter, it was him. Logan, Maya, the journalist said, shaking their hands as they sat down across from him. I've been following the leaks from your project for a while. But what you've brought me today, he paused, glancing down at the documents they handed him. This is massive. Logan leaned forward. We need you to take this to the public. Vander Technologies, Dr. Carter, everything they've been doing, it's all tied to something bigger. The future of our work is at stake, and we can't let them get away with it. The journalist nodded, his face serious. I'm in, but I have to warn you. This will get ugly. People are going to push back hard. You need to be ready for the fallout. Maya exchanged a quick glance with Logan. We know, but it's the only way. The journalist tapped his pen against the desk, thinking, all right, I'll start making calls. We'll set up a meeting with some of my contacts who can help get this information into the right hands. As the meeting wrapped up, Logan and Maya walked out into the crisp afternoon air. Despite the weight of what lay ahead, Logan couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. They were no longer alone in this fight. They had allies, real ones, who understood what was at stake. But as they approached their car, Logan's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a voicemail. He glanced at Maya, who was already looking at him with concern. Who is it? She asked. Logan checked the number, an unknown one. With a deep breath, he pressed play. Logan Bennett, you're making a huge mistake. I told you to stop, but now it's too late. If you think you can expose what's been done, think again. We'll make sure you're never heard from again. The voice was cold, but there was something familiar about it. Logan's pulse quickened. Who was it? And how did they know so much about his plans? Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching echoed in the distance. Logan and Maya turned just in time to see a black SUV speed toward them. Get in the car, Logan shouted. They both rushed to the car, but as Logan reached for the door handle, he saw the SUV coming closer, and it wasn't slowing down. Maya, get down, he yelled. But before they could react, the SUV screeched to a halt just inches from them. Two men in suits jumped out, their faces hard and cold. One of them stepped toward Logan, his hand reaching into his jacket. You need to come with us. Logan's heart raced. This was it. Whoever these people were, they were not playing games. He glanced at Maya. Run. Without thinking, Logan grabbed Maya's arm and yanked her away from the car. They sprinted down the street, adrenaline coursing through their veins. Behind them, the men in suits shouted, but they didn't stop. The chase felt endless. Logan's lungs burned, his legs ached, but they kept running, pushing forward, knowing that if they stopped now, it would be over. As they turned a corner, Logan caught a glimpse of something in the distance, a familiar figure. It was him, Musk. He was standing near a parked car, watching them. The world seemed to slow down as Logan's eyes met Musk's. For a brief moment, it felt like time itself was holding its breath. Musk's expression was unreadable, but there was no mistaking it. He knew what was happening, and in that moment, Logan realized something he had feared for a long time. Elon Musk wasn't just a passive observer in this entire mess. He was in on it. What did Musk know, and was he part of the conspiracy? Or was there a deeper secret yet to be uncovered? Logan's heart raced as he locked eyes with Elon Musk. The world around him seemed to blur, his mind struggling to process the sight of the man who had once seemed like an ally, now standing in front of him with a cold, unreadable expression. Maya was the first to react. Logan, we need to keep moving, she hissed, tugging at his arm. But Logan couldn't look away. Musk didn't move, his stance steady, almost as if he were waiting for them to come closer. Logan's instinct screamed at him to run, to get away from whatever trap was closing in around them. But there was something about Musk's presence, something unsettling, that made him pause. Maya glanced over her shoulder, noticing the men in suits still pursuing them. Logan, this isn't the time for a standoff. But Logan's feet felt like they were cemented to the ground. He had to know. He had to understand what was going on. Musk, Logan started, his voice barely above a whisper. What's happening here? What do you know about all of this? Musk's expression didn't change. You shouldn't have come this far, Logan, he said, his voice surprisingly calm. You don't understand what you're up against. Logan's stomach churned. No, you don't understand. You promised us. Musk raised a hand, cutting him off. I didn't promise anything. I gave you a chance. You were brilliant, Logan, but you've stepped into a much bigger game than you realized. A cold, eerie silence stretched between them, and Logan felt a knot tighten in his chest. Was Musk admitting to being part of this? Was he involved with Vanter Technologies and the conspiracy? Or was he simply another pawn in a game that had spiraled out of control? Before Logan could ask another question, one of the suited men stepped forward, his eyes narrowing. We're not here to talk, Logan, he said, his voice dripping with authority. You've been warned. Suddenly, the ground beneath them seemed to shift. The air felt thick, and Logan's mind raced. Were they about to be captured? Were they going to disappear into the shadows, just like the people who had crossed Vanter Technologies before? But then, unexpectedly, Musk spoke again. Let them go. The words hit Logan like a thunderclap, and he turned to look at Musk, his confusion deepening. Was this a trick? A play to manipulate them further? Musk's eyes flicked briefly to the suited men before returning to Logan. I'm not your enemy, he said, though there was little conviction in his voice. Not yet, at least. Logan blinked, struggling to understand the strange tension in the air. Musk's words felt like a warning, like a promise that something much bigger was unfolding. But why was he letting them go now? The suited men hesitated for a moment, then nodded curtly, their faces unreadable. One of them reached into his coat pocket and pulled out something small, a device. Logan's breath caught in his throat as the device clicked, and the men turned, walking back toward the SUV. For a long moment, Logan and Maya stood in stunned silence, not fully understanding what had just happened. Later that evening, Logan sat in a dimly lit room, his mind spinning with confusion and questions. He had barely been able to make sense of what had transpired in the last few hours. Musk, the very man who had seemed like their savior, had just let them go. After everything that had happened, everything they'd learned about the conspiracy and the danger they were in. He glanced at Maya, who was pacing nervously. What the hell just happened? She asked, her voice a mixture of anger and confusion. Musk just let us go. Why? Logan shook his head, still struggling to make sense of the situation. I don't know. It doesn't add up. He was there. He knew what was going on, but he didn't do anything. He didn't stop them from going after us. Maya stopped pacing and turned to face him. You think he's part of this? Part of the conspiracy? Logan didn't answer right away. His gut told him that Musk wasn't just a bystander. Everything that had happened, the strange shifts in their project, the sudden power grab by Vanter Technologies, the threats they had received, pointed to Musk being deeply involved. But why would he let them go if he were the one pulling the strings? I don't know, Logan said finally, but I'm not buying that he's just some innocent player in all of this. There's more going on here, and we need to figure it out fast. Maya nodded, her jaw set. Then we'll find out. We've already come too far to back down now. As the night wore on, Logan and Maya worked relentlessly, digging deeper into the tangled web of corruption, corporate deals, and hidden motives that had led them to this moment. Every lead they followed seemed to only bring them deeper into the darkness. It was clear now that there were forces at play far more powerful than they had ever imagined. But as they sifted through the data, something caught Logan's eye. A name that had appeared repeatedly in the encrypted messages and documents they had been analyzing. JP. Who was this person? Why was he always connected to Vanter Technologies? And why had their meeting transcripts mentioned him so often? Logan leaned forward, a sense of urgency building in his chest. He had to find out who JP was. The next day, Logan and Maya took a risky step. They reached out to the few remaining allies they had. One of them, a former colleague of Logan's from his tech days, had access to classified corporate data. They asked for his help in digging deeper into Vanter Technologies, particularly anything that could shed light on JP and his role in the conspiracy. Logan's colleague agreed to help, but with a heavy warning, be careful. Vanter's reach is far and wide. You're not just dealing with some startup anymore. You're up against an entire network of powerful people. As they waited for more information, Logan felt a sense of dread settle in. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous this game became. And the more they discovered about JP, the clearer it became that they were not just fighting for the future of their work, they were fighting for their very survival. Who was JP? And what was the deeper secret he was hiding? The answers were closer than they knew, but with every step they took, the danger grew. The next few days felt like a blur of nonstop work and racing against time. Logan and Maya sat huddled together in the dimly lit room, surrounded by papers, laptop screens, and endless notes. Their once clear goal, unmasking the conspiracy, was now clouded with doubt and confusion. Every new lead they uncovered only deepened the mystery. It was late at night when Logan's colleague sent over a secured file. The encrypted message contained a treasure trove of information, and Logan's hands shook as he began decrypting the file. Maya leaned in, her breath catching as she saw the name that had haunted them for days. JP. Logan opened the file, scanning through the document. It was full of financial reports, secret communications, and confidential contracts that had been signed under aliases. But there, hidden in the depths of the file, was something that made Logan's blood run cold. A list of names, and beside each, a description of their involvement with Vanter Technologies. And at the top of the list, in bold, red letters, John Prescott. Logan's heart skipped a beat. The name rang a bell, but it wasn't until he saw the accompanying note that everything clicked into place. JP is John Prescott, head of Vanter Technologies' secret division. Logan couldn't believe it. John Prescott, the same name tied to several of the largest, most powerful mergers in the tech world, was the person pulling the strings behind Vanter Shadow operations. This was the man they had been looking for all along. How did we miss this? Maya whispered, her face pale. Logan didn't answer right away. He was still processing the enormity of what they had just uncovered. John Prescott was no ordinary executive. He was one of the most influential people in the tech industry. His ties to powerful government officials and corporate giants gave him access to resources that could bury anyone who stood in his way. But why hadn't Musk told them about Prescott? Why had he remained silent when he had to know? Logan's mind raced, trying to fit the pieces together. He knew Musk was somehow involved in this, whether directly or indirectly, but Prescott was a different level of power altogether. Musk's silence was beginning to make more sense. If he were caught up in Prescott's web, he might not have had a choice. But if that was the case, why hadn't he helped them? Maya, as if reading Logan's thoughts, said, "Do you think Musk is working with Prescott?" Logan shook his head slowly. "I don't know, but something tells me it's not that simple." The more Logan thought about it, the more complicated the situation became. If Prescott was truly the mastermind behind Vanter Technologies' shady dealings, then they were dealing with an empire far beyond anything they had imagined. They weren't just fighting for their work, they were fighting for their lives. "I need to know more," Logan muttered, scanning the rest of the file. There were more details, but they were hard to make sense of. Prescott's secret division was involved in everything from corporate espionage to illegal surveillance, and it seemed that no corner of the tech world was safe from his reach. They had uncovered enough to know that Prescott's influence ran deep, but they still had no idea how far it reached or what his ultimate goals were. Logan looked up at Maya, determination setting into his gaze. "We need to find Prescott. Now." The search for Prescott led them down dark and dangerous paths. They had to dig through layers of false identities, track down old business associates, and hack into secret networks. The more they uncovered, the more the walls seemed to close in around them. But their breakthrough came when Logan managed to track down Prescott's private office in a hidden location, an underground facility that was not listed on any map. It was here, Logan realized, that Prescott was likely pulling all the strings. If they were ever going to stop him, this was their chance. Maya's eyes glinted with resolve. "We're not walking away from this. If Prescott is here, we're going in." Logan nodded, a wave of unease washing over him. He didn't know what to expect when they entered Prescott's lair, but one thing was certain. The moment they stepped inside, there would be no going back. As they neared the entrance to the facility, the tension between them was palpable. The air seemed heavy, thick with the weight of the secrets they were about to uncover. Logan's pulse quickened with every step. He had no idea what they would find inside, but he was prepared for anything. But just as they were about to enter, a voice called out from behind them. "Logan, Maya, I knew you'd come." Both of them froze. Logan's heart skipped a beat as he turned around to see none other than Elon Musk, standing at the entrance of the tunnel, his face shadowed by the dim light. "What the hell are you doing here?" Logan demanded, his voice tight with suspicion. Musk took a slow, deliberate step forward. "I told you, Logan, this isn't what you think. Prescott is dangerous, but you're not ready for what's inside." Logan's mind raced, his hands clenching into fists. He couldn't trust Musk, not after everything that had happened. But then again, maybe Musk knew more than they did. Maybe he had a way of stopping Prescott. "Then help us," Logan said, his voice a mix of frustration and hope. "Help us stop him." Musk's eyes flickered with something, maybe regret, maybe something deeper, but he didn't answer immediately. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "You don't know what you're getting into. Prescott doesn't just control Vanter. He controls everything, and he'll stop at nothing to make sure no one stands in his way." Logan didn't flinch. "We have no choice. We're going in." Musk hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Then let's do this. But remember, once we step inside, there's no turning back." As they entered the underground facility, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. Every corner seemed to hide something more sinister, every door more ominous than the last. But they had no choice. This was the moment they had been preparing for, the moment they would finally confront the true force behind Vanter Technologies. What would they find inside Prescott's lair? Was this the end of their journey, or the beginning of an even more dangerous fight? Logan, Maya, and Elon Musk moved cautiously through the dimly lit underground facility, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. Every shadow seemed to conceal something more sinister, and the deeper they went, the more Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As they navigated the narrow corridors, Musk led the way, his face tense and unreadable. Despite the oddity of having Musk alongside them, Logan couldn't deny that the billionaire seemed to know the facility better than he'd let on. But why had he kept his involvement hidden? Was he truly an ally, or just another cog in Prescott's machine? "We're getting close," Musk whispered, glancing around nervously. Logan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He wanted answers. He needed them. Prescott's operation was vast, and now that they were so close to him, Logan couldn't afford to let his guard down. "I don't trust you," Logan muttered, his eyes narrowing as he studied Musk. "You've been hiding something, and now you expect us to believe you're here to help?" Musk stopped walking, turning to face Logan. His eyes were sharp, but there was an undeniable weariness in his gaze. "I'm not your enemy, Logan. Prescott is." Logan didn't respond immediately. The tension between them was palpable, the trust they'd built up over the course of their investigation eroding with every passing second. Still, there was something about Musk's tone, the raw sincerity in it, that made Logan hesitate. Before Logan could say anything more, Maya stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "We don't have time for this. We're this close to getting the answers we need, and we can't afford to waste any more time." She was right. Time was a luxury they didn't have. The deeper they ventured into the facility, the more intense the feeling that something was watching them grew. Logan's instinct screamed that they were on the verge of uncovering something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. They continued down the corridor, the sound of their footsteps growing louder with each passing second. At the end of the hall was a door, slightly ajar, flickering with the cold light of a computer screen. Logan motioned for the group to stop. His breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight before him. The door led into a massive control room, lined with high-tech equipment and monitors, all flickering with streams of data. A single figure stood in the center of the room, facing a massive screen. Logan's pulse quickened. It was him, John Prescott, the man they had been chasing for weeks, the one pulling the strings behind Vanter Technologies' darkest secrets. Prescott didn't turn around at their arrival, but he didn't need to. He knew they were there. Well, Prescott said, his voice calm, almost too calm. I didn't expect you to make it this far. Logan stepped forward, his fists clenched. This ends now, Prescott. We know everything. Your games are over. Prescott turned slowly, a smug smile creeping onto his face. Is that what you think? You've barely scratched the surface, Logan. This isn't just about Vanter or me. It's about something far greater. Logan's mind raced. What was Prescott talking about? What are you talking about? What's the endgame? Prescott chuckled darkly. You really don't get it, do you? I'm not just running a company, Logan. I'm building a new world. One where the rules of power are rewritten. And you, he pointed at Musk, you've already helped me set the stage. You just didn't know it. Maya's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Musk had nothing to do with your twisted plans. Prescott's smile widened, and he glanced briefly at Musk before looking back at Logan. Don't be so naive. Musk's ideas, his ventures, his innovations, they've all been part of the blueprint I've been putting together for years. All of it leads to this moment. Logan turned to Musk, his mind reeling. What's he talking about? What role did you play in this? Musk's expression was unreadable as he met Logan's gaze. He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come immediately. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and measured. I didn't know the full extent of what Prescott was planning, but I've been working with him on certain projects. He approached me years ago with an idea, a new kind of technology, one that would change the world. At the time, it seemed like just another venture, but now, he trailed off, looking uneasy. Logan's mind raced. It made sense now, how Prescott had manipulated everyone around him. Musk had been too focused on innovation to see the dangers lurking behind Prescott's vision. It wasn't just about technology, it was about control. What's your endgame, Prescott? Logan demanded, stepping closer. How do you plan to rewrite the rules of power? Prescott's eyes gleamed with a dangerous ambition. You'll see soon enough. But don't think for a second you can stop me now. I've already set things in motion. You're too late. Suddenly, the sound of a door slamming shut echoed through the room. Logan whipped around, his heart racing. The entrance to the control room was sealed, trapping them inside. Prescott's smug grin grew wider. This is where the fun begins. Logan's instincts screamed at him to act. But before he could move, a series of lights on the control panels flickered on, and the room was filled with the sound of rapidly accelerating beeps. Something was happening. What's going on? Maya shouted, her voice laced with panic. It's a countdown, Musk muttered, his voice filled with dread. He's activating something. Prescott looked over his shoulder at the monitors, his smile never faltering. You were too slow. The countdown's already begun. In a matter of minutes, everything will change. What had Prescott activated? Was it too late to stop him, or did Logan and Maya have one last chance to thwart his dangerous plan? The sound of beeping grew louder, faster, as Logan's heart pounded in his chest. The countdown on the monitors flashed in red numbers, 450, 449, 448. Each second felt like an eternity, and every breath Logan took felt heavier than the last. Prescott was right. They were too late. Maya stepped forward, her face etched with fear but determination. We can't just stand here. We have to stop it. Logan's eyes darted to the control panels, trying to make sense of the rapidly changing data. There had to be a way to shut it down. Musk, Logan said, turning to the billionaire. You've been working with him. Do you know what this is? Musk looked grim, his usual confident demeanor shattered by the imminent danger. I don't know the full scope, but I've seen similar systems before. It's a data transmission network, but this one, it's far more advanced. It's not just information being sent out. It's controlling systems. It can trigger mass disruption, financial, political, military. Great, Maya muttered. So it's a weapon? Not just a weapon, Musk said, his voice low. It's a new kind of weapon. A network that can alter realities. Once it's activated, it can manipulate stock markets, take control of governments, redirect military forces. It's a global-scale attack, one that no one will be able to stop. Logan's mind raced. The stakes had just gone from personal to catastrophic. Prescott wasn't just trying to corner the market or take down a few rivals. He was after something far more dangerous, control of the world itself. The countdown continued, ticking relentlessly closer to 0. "We need to stop this," Logan said, his voice steady despite the panic surging inside him. "Musk, you're the only one who might understand how to shut it down." Musk looked at the screen, his brow furrowed. "I don't know. I never had full access to the system. Prescott kept everything locked down tight. But there might be a way." His fingers hovered over a panel. Then he pulled back, his gaze shifting to Logan. "I can try to reverse the code, but I'll need time. I'll need access to the mainframe." The mainframe was on the other side of the room, guarded by a series of locked doors and high-tech security systems. They'd have to fight their way through. But the biggest problem was time. The countdown was at 3:45 now, and they didn't have long. Maya glanced around, her eyes scanning the room. "We don't have much time. We need a distraction." Logan's mind clicked into gear. "I'll create one. You two head to the mainframe. Musk, can you give me any backup?" Musk's expression was conflicted. He wasn't sure he could do much, but he nodded. "I'll do what I can, but you need to get moving fast." Without waiting for further discussion, Logan darted toward a nearby control panel, his mind working at lightning speed. He had to act fast. He needed a way to divert Prescott's attention, something that would buy them the time they needed to stop the countdown. Maya and Musk moved toward the mainframe, but Logan could feel their eyes on him as he made his way to the panel. He swallowed the nerves in his throat and started typing furiously. Sparks flew as his hands danced over the keyboard, bypassing security protocols and triggering false alarms throughout the facility. The lights flickered, and the hum of the building shifted, signaling a shift in security protocols. "Logan!" Maya shouted from across the room. "What are you doing?" "I'm buying us some time," he called back. "Keep going." The building seemed to tremble as alarms blared louder. The floor beneath their feet shook. Prescott's face twisted in fury. "You think you can stop me with a little hack?" he snarled, his voice rising with rage. "You think I don't have a contingency plan for this?" Logan's fingers flew across the panel as he initiated another round of security breaches. Systems began to malfunction. Doors slid open and shut in chaotic patterns, screens flashed with random data, and every electronic device in the room buzzed with interference. It wasn't much, but it was enough to momentarily confuse Prescott's command center. Maya and Musk were almost at the mainframe now. Time was running out, and Logan knew it. The countdown was ticking down to 2:30. "Just a little longer," Musk muttered as he approached the central console. He scanned the system, his fingers moving rapidly over the controls. "There's got to be a backdoor to shut this down. I just need—" A sudden voice cut through the chaos. "No more time." Logan whipped around, his pulse racing. Standing at the entrance of the room was a group of armed guards, their guns aimed at them. Behind them, Prescott was grinning, a look of cruel satisfaction on his face. "You've made a mess of my plans, Logan," Prescott said coldly, "but it's too late now." Logan's heart dropped. They were surrounded. The guards had them cornered, and there was no way out. "Move," Logan shouted, reaching into his jacket for the small taser gun he'd hidden earlier. He fired, hitting one of the guards square in the chest. The man collapsed to the floor, but there were too many others, too many guns pointing at them. The countdown continued, relentlessly ticking away. Logan's mind raced, trying to think of something, anything. They couldn't fail now. He had no idea what would happen if Prescott's plan succeeded, but the world would be changed forever, and they would have no say in it. Maya's voice cut through his thoughts. "Logan, we don't have time for this. We need to get to that mainframe now." With a final glance at the guards, Logan took a deep breath and turned back toward the control panel. He couldn't waste another second. The fate of everything depended on them. With the armed guards closing in and the countdown dwindling, can Logan and his team get to the mainframe in time to stop Prescott's devastating plan, or is it already too late? The tension in the room was suffocating. Logan could feel the cold sweat drenching his back as he kept his eyes locked on the armed guards. Their weapons were aimed at him, their fingers twitching on the triggers, and time was slipping away. Every passing second brought them closer to total disaster. The countdown, 1:45, 1:44, was ticking relentlessly, and the pressure was unbearable. "Move," Logan barked again. his voice sharp and desperate. He was running out of options, out of time. Maya and Musk were at the central control panel, furiously typing away, but the group of guards closed in around them, blocking any chance of escape. Prescott stood behind them, his smug expression never faltering. He had won. At least, that's what he thought. Logan's eyes flicked between the control panels, his mind scrambling for a solution. He needed to do something, anything, to buy them more time. "Musk," he shouted, urgency in his voice. "Is there anything you can do? I can't hold them off much longer." Musk, his face pale with fear and concentration, didn't look up. His fingers flew across the keys in a blur. "I'm trying, Logan, but this system is far more advanced than I anticipated. I need more access, more time." Logan cursed under his breath. He knew Musk was doing everything he could, but it didn't feel like it was enough. The guards were tightening their circle, inching closer with every breath, and Prescott was still standing there, waiting for his moment to gloat. "Logan!" Maya shouted, her voice breaking through the tension. She was standing next to Musk, her hands trembling as she worked. "There's a way. The mainframe's password protection system has a vulnerability. I can exploit it. Just cover us." Logan nodded without hesitation, instinct kicking in. He fired another shot from his taser gun, hitting one of the guards in the shoulder. The man dropped with a grunt, but there were too many others. More guards filed into the room, their weapons raised. It was getting harder to keep them at bay. "Don't stop, Maya," Logan yelled, his heart racing. "Just keep going." Maya didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed focused on the screen, her fingers a blur as she bypassed layer after layer of encryption. Sweat trickled down her forehead, but she didn't slow down. Logan's breath caught in his throat. It was their only chance. Prescott, now visibly irritated, stepped forward. "Enough," he sneered. "You really think you can beat me? You've been playing my game, but I'm the one who set the rules." Logan's blood boiled at Prescott's arrogance, but he pushed it down, knowing that if he lost control now, it would all be over. He aimed his taser at another guard and fired, but this time, the shot went wide. The guard ducked, taking cover behind a column, his rifle aimed squarely at Logan. There was no more time for hesitation. Musk's voice broke through the chaos. "Logan, I've got it. Just one more minute. We're so close." Logan's heart skipped a beat. "1 minute, Musk. That's all we need. Hold on." The guards were closing in, their footsteps echoing louder with each second. The air seemed to crackle with anticipation, and Logan could feel the heat of their weapons, the weight of the impending disaster pressing in from all sides. Maya's voice was steady despite the chaos around them. "Got it. Password overridden. I'm in." A collective breath seemed to escape the room as Maya's hands flew over the keys. The countdown paused. For a moment, everything stopped. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. Logan didn't dare believe it yet. There was still so much to do, so many dangers ahead. Prescott, too, seemed to sense the shift, his expression turning from smug satisfaction to cold, calculated rage. "No," he growled. "No, you can't do this. You're too late." Maya's hands moved quickly, her fingers racing to navigate the final layers of the system. This isn't just about stopping the countdown. It's about taking control back. Logan's mind raced. They were on the brink of something massive, something world-changing. He couldn't afford to let Prescott escape, couldn't afford to lose now. With a final keystroke, Maya hit the enter key. The screen flickered. Then, the countdown continued, but now it was in reverse. The red numbers started to climb, counting up from 1 o'clock. Logan's heart leapt into his throat. It was working. But before anyone could celebrate, Prescott lunged forward, knocking one of the guards out of the way and racing for the console. His hand shot out, aiming for the emergency shutdown button. If he hit it, everything would be reset, and they would lose again. Logan acted on instinct. He ran toward Prescott, his legs pumping, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He couldn't let Prescott win. Not now. Not when they were so close. As Prescott's hand reached the button, Logan dove, tackling him to the ground. The two men hit the floor with a thud, the force of the impact knocking the wind out of Logan. Prescott struggled beneath him, his hands grasping at Logan's arms, trying to break free. Logan gritted his teeth. He had to hold him down. They couldn't let him reset everything. Not now. Maya! Logan shouted, his voice raw. Finish it. Don't let him stop you. Maya's voice was almost a whisper, but it carried through the chaos. I'm almost done. Logan tightened his grip on Prescott, pinning him down as the billionaire writhed beneath him. He could hear the urgency in Maya's voice, the sound of the final few keystrokes being entered. Just as Prescott raised his fist to strike Logan, Maya's final keystroke echoed in the room, and the countdown reversed, completely. It stopped. All of Prescott's plans were undone in an instant. Prescott's eyes widened in disbelief. No, he muttered. This can't be happening. Logan held him down, his chest heaving with adrenaline. The room was eerily quiet for a moment. Then, the distant sound of sirens grew louder, signaling the arrival of law enforcement. It was over. With Prescott's plan thwarted and law enforcement closing in, Logan and his team have won. At least for now. But Prescott's defeat is only the beginning. What other secrets does he hold? And how will this victory change Logan's life forever? The sirens wailed in the distance, signaling the end of their harrowing ordeal. Logan held Prescott down, his chest rising and falling in quick, erratic breaths, the adrenaline still surging through his veins. The room, once filled with chaos and tension, was now quiet, too quiet. The echoes of gunshots and the frantic cries of guards had faded, leaving only the faint hum of machinery and the distant wail of approaching police. Logan's mind raced as he glanced around the room. The countdown had stopped. Prescott's grip on power had been shattered. But something inside Logan told him that the battle wasn't over. Not yet. Maya, is it done? Logan asked, his voice still heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. Maya stood at the control panel, her fingers hovering over the keys. Her eyes were wide, her face flushed from the intensity of the moment. I think so, she said, but the uncertainty in her voice sent a chill down Logan's spine. Think so? He echoed, pushing Prescott's body down further into the cold concrete. What do you mean? She turned to face him, her brow furrowed. I stopped the countdown, but there might be more to this system than we realize. I've never seen anything like it before. Prescott was using multiple backups. If any one of them is still active, Logan's heart sank. You mean we're not done? Maya's eyes locked with his, and for a brief moment, the weight of the situation seemed to hang between them like a dense fog. No, we're not. We need to be sure everything is cleared. Logan gritted his teeth. He had hoped, for just a moment, that they had won, that they had stopped the impossible. But now, it seemed they were right back where they started. He looked at Prescott, who was now struggling under Logan's weight, his face twisted in rage. You're wasting your time, Prescott spat. Even if you think you've won, you haven't. There are layers to this plan you can't even begin to comprehend. Logan ignored him, tightening his grip on the billionaire's wrists. You'll have plenty of time to explain everything to the authorities. If we're lucky, they'll lock you away for good. Prescott chuckled darkly, but Logan could see the flicker of unease in his eyes. He knew that Prescott, for all his arrogance, was just as uncertain as they were. If there was one thing Logan understood about powerful men like him, it was that they always had one last card to play. A loud crash echoed through the hallways, followed by the sound of footsteps. The sirens were nearly at the door. Logan could feel the change in the air. The arrival of the police would bring their world back to some semblance of order, but it wouldn't erase the chaos they'd just survived. Maya stepped toward the console once more, her eyes scanning the screen with intensity. Logan kept his eyes trained on Prescott, who had gone eerily quiet, his usual bravado replaced by a simmering frustration. How long until they're here? Logan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Minutes, Maya replied, not looking up from the screen. But we need to make sure everything's shut down. If Prescott has any more tricks up his sleeve, we'll be dealing with them before we can leave. Logan nodded, his mind spinning. He had to trust that Maya would find a way to end this for good. He wasn't sure how much longer he could keep Prescott under control. He was tired, his body aching from the fight, but he couldn't let his guard down. Not yet. The door to the control room slammed open, and a team of armed police officers rushed in, weapons drawn. Logan quickly released his hold on Prescott, stepping aside to allow the officers to take over. The tension in the room remained palpable as they secured Prescott, handcuffing him with mechanical precision. One of the officers, a tall woman with dark, focused eyes, stepped toward Logan. "We've got this from here," she said, her voice steady, but with an edge of respect. "You're going to need to come with us." Logan nodded, too exhausted to argue. "We need to check the systems one last time," he said, his voice hoarse. Prescott might still have something hidden. The officer gave him a sharp nod, signaling to her team to follow. They moved quickly, checking the room and securing any remaining threats. Maya was still at the console, her fingers flying over the keys as she worked to verify the systems were fully shut down. Seconds felt like hours as the weight of the situation pressed down on Logan. Prescott, now subdued, was dragged away by the officers, his eyes burning with hatred. Logan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the end. Not by a long shot. Maya turned to him, her expression serious. "It's done. I've cleared everything." Logan allowed himself a moment of relief, though it was fleeting. The aftermath was just beginning. As Logan and Maya prepare to leave the facility, a cryptic message flashes on the control panel screen. The game is far from over. Logan's blood runs cold as he realizes that Prescott's defeat may have been just the beginning of an even larger, more dangerous game. Logan stared at the screen, the cryptic message dancing in front of his eyes. The game is far from over. His heart skipped a beat, and his gut twisted with unease. For a moment, he wondered if he had misread the situation. If Prescott had somehow orchestrated this entire ordeal, setting the stage for another round of chaos, another layer of deception. But no. He had seen Prescott's smug face fall when Maya disabled the countdown. Prescott had lost. Or had he? Maya, standing beside him, was silent, but her eyes flicked between Logan and the control panel, narrowing as she processed the same unsettling message. She had worked tirelessly to shut down Prescott's systems, to ensure that his plan had been dismantled. But now, this. Was it a trap? A final move in Prescott's chess game? "We need to get out of here," the officer who had spoken earlier, Captain Harris, said, breaking the silence. Her voice was firm, authoritative, but there was an undercurrent of concern in her tone that made Logan wary. "The building's been compromised, and we've called in a cleanup crew. We don't have time to." "I'm not leaving," Logan interrupted, his voice calm but resolute. He turned back to the console, his fingers moving almost instinctively toward the panel. Maya, without a word, joined him. "You don't think Prescott's just finished, do you?" Maya asked, her brow furrowed. This could be another diversion. Logan nodded, his mind already racing through every possibility. Prescott was a man of layers. His entire life had been spent building complex schemes, each one designed to keep others off balance, to make sure he was always one step ahead. This was no different. "We need to trace the source of that message," Logan said, his voice steady despite the flood of adrenaline that surged through him. Maya worked swiftly, her fingers dancing over the keys with precision. "I'm in," she murmured. "It's coming from a hidden server in the building. It wasn't part of Prescott's main network. He must have kept this separate, as a backup." Logan's eyes narrowed. This wasn't just a warning, it was a new threat. Prescott hadn't been defeated, not by a long shot. He had anticipated their every move, including this moment of triumph. "Maya," Logan said, his voice low, "how long will it take to trace it back?" She didn't look up as she typed furiously, but her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'll need a minute, maybe two." The tension in the room was palpable as Logan glanced around. The officers were moving to secure the building, but Logan knew they couldn't afford to wait for them. Prescott's true plan might still be in motion, and every second counted. Logan clenched his fists. He couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. This wasn't just about stopping one man's scheme. It was about preventing a disaster that could reach far beyond the walls of this building. If Prescott was still playing his game, it was only a matter of time before the world would know it. "How are we looking?" Logan asked, his voice tight with impatience. Maya's face was a mask of concentration. Almost there. Found it. Logan leaned in, his heart pounding as the screen lit up with a new set of coordinates. What is it? It's an address, she replied. A place Prescott's been hiding out. We thought we had him cornered, but this is where he's been pulling the strings. The server's location, it's a decoy. This address is his real base of operations. Logan's mind raced. Prescott had orchestrated everything. The hostage situation, the countdown, the false alarms, all designed to distract them while he made his escape. This wasn't over. Are you sure? Logan asked, his voice cold. Maya nodded, her face pale as the gravity of their discovery sank in. Yes, it's real. This address, it's in the heart of the city. It's isolated, heavily guarded. Logan's eyes flashed with determination. Then we have to move. Now. Captain Harris stepped forward, having overheard the exchange. You're not going anywhere, she said firmly. We've got it covered. You've done enough. Logan didn't even flinch. You don't understand, he said, his voice sharp. Prescott is still out there. And if we don't act now, there's no telling what he's going to do next. Harris hesitated, then nodded. Fine. We'll send a team with you. But you're not doing this alone. Logan didn't argue. He knew they would need all the help they could get. Prescott was dangerous. He wasn't a man who would go quietly. And the message he left behind was a reminder that the stakes were much higher than they had realized. Let's move, Logan said. As they prepared to leave, Maya looked at him, her expression grave. Logan, I don't know if we're ready for whatever comes next. Prescott's no ordinary criminal. This is something bigger. Logan met her gaze, his jaw tight. I know, but we don't have a choice. As Logan, Maya, and the team head toward the address, a sudden realization strikes Logan. Prescott's entire operation might not just be about power or money. It might be about something far more dangerous, something that could change the world as they know it. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap, and that Prescott was about to reveal his final, most terrifying move. The sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor as Logan and Maya, accompanied by a team of officers, made their way toward the exit of the facility. The tension was thick in the air, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Logan's mind was still reeling from the discovery of Prescott's hidden server and the cryptic message he'd left behind. Every instinct told him that they were on the cusp of something far bigger than they had anticipated. Maya walked beside him, her face tense but determined. The closer they got to the exit, the more Logan could feel the magnitude of the situation pressing on him. Prescott had outsmarted them at every turn. He had anticipated their every move. They had thought they had him cornered, but now, it felt like they were the ones being hunted. I've been thinking, Maya said quietly, breaking the silence. If Prescott's got a real base of operations, then everything we've seen so far is just the tip of the iceberg. He's got connections, resources. This might not just be about money or power. What if it's about something bigger? Logan glanced at her, his brow furrowed. What do you mean? I don't know, but the way he operates, it's methodical. He's not just some villain looking to take over. There's a purpose behind it all. I just can't figure out what. Logan felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Prescott's motivations had always seemed elusive. Just when they thought they had a grasp on them, he revealed another layer. Now, it seemed that layer was about to be exposed in a way neither of them could have imagined. As they exited the building and approached the waiting vehicles, Logan's thoughts shifted to the next step, getting to the address Maya had uncovered. They had no idea what awaited them there, but Logan knew one thing for certain. This wouldn't be an easy fight. Prescott had likely been preparing for this moment, and it was only a matter of time before they were drawn into his web once again. The officers moved swiftly, getting into their respective vehicles. Maya sat beside Logan, her fingers tapping nervously on her leg as the car sped toward their destination. The city stretched out in front of them, the towering buildings a stark contrast to the isolated location they were heading to. Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against time. What do we do if we get there, and it's a trap? Maya asked, her voice laced with concern. We keep our heads on straight and stick to the plan, Logan replied, his voice steady despite the nerves gnawing at him. We go in prepared, and we don't take any unnecessary risks. Maya nodded, but her face remained drawn, as though she couldn't quite shake the dread she was feeling. Logan understood. They were walking into the unknown, and Prescott had proven time and again that he was willing to do whatever it took to stay one step ahead. The car turned onto a narrow street, the surroundings growing darker and more desolate. The buildings here were older, their once grand facades now weathered and crumbling. It was a stark contrast to the gleaming glass towers of the city center. This place felt abandoned, almost like a forgotten part of the world. But Logan knew better. This was exactly the kind of place Prescott would choose to hide his operation. As they drew closer to the address, Logan's thoughts kept racing. What could Prescott possibly be hiding here? And why had he left them this breadcrumb? Was he playing with them? Or was this part of a larger scheme? Something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined? The car slowed as they reached a dead-end street. The officers quickly began to disembark, weapons drawn, their eyes scanning the area for any signs of danger. Logan's heart pounded in his chest as he stepped out of the vehicle. The building in front of them was a nondescript warehouse, its windows dark and the doors sealed shut. It seemed abandoned, but Logan knew appearances could be deceiving. "This is it," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Logan nodded, his eyes scanning the perimeter. The atmosphere felt oppressive, like a storm waiting to break. Every instinct in him screamed that something was wrong. They were too close to Prescott, too close to the heart of whatever he was planning. The officers moved quickly to secure the area, their training kicking in as they fanned out, checking the surroundings for any sign of an ambush. Logan and Maya remained near the entrance, waiting for the signal to move in. A sudden, shrill noise broke the stillness, an alarm. Logan's blood ran cold as the sound reverberated through the air, echoing off the walls of the surrounding buildings. It was loud, deafening, and it seemed to come from every direction at once. "Damn it," Logan muttered. "He's expecting us." Without warning, the ground beneath them seemed to tremble, a low rumble that gradually grew louder. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed through the streets, and Logan's eyes widened in horror as he realized what was happening. "They've locked us in," he said, his voice rising with urgency. Maya turned, her face pale. "What? How?" "The building. The doors. Everything's been sealed. We're trapped." The officers began to shout orders as they scrambled to find a way to break through the seals, but Logan knew it was pointless. Prescott had them right where he wanted them. They were about to become part of his final game. As the rumbling grew louder, a massive steel door at the far end of the street began to rise slowly, revealing a dark, ominous figure standing in the shadows. Logan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the silhouette. It was Prescott. But this time, he wasn't alone. A group of armed men emerged from the darkness behind him, and Logan realized with a sickening feeling that the battle was about to escalate in a way they couldn't have prepared for. The air around Logan and Maya thickened with tension as Prescott stepped into the dim light, his cold, calculating eyes scanning the group. The sound of the steel door scraping against the floor was almost deafening in the silence that followed. The figures behind him emerged into view. Soldiers, equipped with military-grade weapons, their faces hidden by masks. It was clear. Prescott had been preparing for this moment for a long time. "Logan," Prescott's voice was calm, almost too calm, as he spoke, his tone dripping with mockery. "I see you've made it this far, but as you can see, this is where your journey ends." Logan's jaw clenched, his mind racing. This wasn't just a fight. It was a trap. Prescott had orchestrated every step of their path, knowing exactly how they would react, what they would do next. Logan glanced quickly at Maya, whose hand was hovering near her sidearm. She was ready, but Logan could tell she was just as nervous as he was. "Prescott," Logan called out, his voice steady despite the rising panic. "It's over. We know everything about your operation. You've lost." Prescott laughed, a low, mocking sound that sent a chill down Logan's spine. "Lost? I've only just begun. You think this is about some petty scheme? No, Logan. This is bigger. Much bigger." Logan didn't flinch. "Then what is it? What's the endgame?" For a moment, Prescott didn't answer. Instead, He took a slow step forward, his eyes never leaving Logan. The soldiers behind him shifted, their hands twitching near their weapons, but they were waiting for Prescott's command. "You've been chasing shadows," Prescott finally said, his smile wide, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The real game isn't here. It's out there, in the world, and you've been so focused on me that you haven't seen the bigger picture." Logan narrowed his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Before Prescott could respond, the rumble in the distance grew louder, and suddenly, the ground shook beneath their feet. It wasn't just an earthquake. It was something more, something calculated. Logan's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just a building or a city block they were up against. Prescott had prepared for a global event. Logan's mind clicked into overdrive. What had Prescott been planning? "I'm sure you've noticed the changes, Logan," Prescott continued, his voice colder now. "The world is becoming unstable, unpredictable. The systems we rely on are fragile, and I intend to break them." Maya shot a glance at Logan, her face a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "You're going to start a war? A global collapse?" Prescott smiled darkly. "Not just a war, Maya. A new world order. The systems we've lived under are outdated. They're too fragile. It's time for change, real change, and I will be the one to bring it." Logan felt his stomach twist in knots. Prescott was talking about something far more dangerous than just a criminal operation. He was talking about chaos on a global scale. The kind of chaos that could unravel everything: economies, governments, and entire societies. It was a revolution, but it was one built on destruction. "You're insane," Logan said, his voice low with contempt. Prescott's expression darkened, his smile fading. "Insane? No, Logan. I'm visionary. I see the future, and the future is chaos." Logan's mind raced. Prescott had been building toward this moment for years. Everything they had uncovered, all the clues, they had only scratched the surface of his true plan. The server, the countdown, the false messages, those were all diversions. The real threat was something far more insidious. Suddenly, there was a loud crash from behind them. One of the officers had tried to break through the sealed doors. But the sound was just a distraction. Logan knew Prescott had anticipated every move. Prescott was playing with them, pushing them to their limits. "Get down," Maya shouted. The officers dove for cover as gunfire erupted from the soldiers behind Prescott. Logan's heart raced as he ducked behind a nearby stack of crates. Maya was already moving, her gun raised, scanning for targets. "Logan, we need to move." "Now," Maya called, her voice urgent. Logan didn't hesitate. He turned, sprinting toward the far end of the warehouse, where he knew there was a secondary exit. But Prescott's men were everywhere. The air was thick with the sounds of gunfire, and Logan could feel the heat of it as bullets tore through the air around him. They reached the exit, but as Logan reached for the door, he stopped dead in his tracks. There, standing in the shadows, was Prescott. His cold smile returned as he stepped into the light, flanked by two heavily armed guards. "You think you can run from this, Logan?" Prescott's voice was like ice. "This is just the beginning. You're playing checkers while I'm playing chess." Logan's breath quickened as he realized they were surrounded. Prescott had outmaneuvered them once again, and now there was no way out. Logan's heart raced as Prescott's men closed in, the cold metal of their weapons gleaming in the dim light. They were trapped. Prescott was in control, and there seemed to be no escape. Logan felt the weight of the situation bear down on him, but just as all hope seemed lost, something unexpected happened. A loud explosion rang out from behind them, and the building shook violently. For a split second, Logan was thrown off balance. Was this the beginning of the chaos Prescott had warned about, or was it the moment they finally had a chance to escape? The explosion ripped through the building with a deafening roar, throwing Logan and Maya to the ground. The force of it sent debris scattering, the walls shaking as dust and rubble filled the air. Logan's ears rang, his vision momentarily blurred as he struggled to regain his bearings. The air was thick with smoke, and his heart pounded in his chest as he pushed himself up, gasping for breath. "Maya," Logan called, coughing through the haze. A hand shot out from the smoke, gripping his arm tightly. It was Maya, her face smudged with soot, her eyes wide but determined. She pulled him to his feet just as another blast echoed through the building. "We need to move now," Maya shouted, her voice barely audible over the chaos. Logan nodded, his mind racing. Prescott's cold eyes had been the last thing he'd seen before the explosion. Was this some sort of distraction? Or had the explosion been the start of whatever larger plan Prescott had set in motion? They couldn't afford to stand still and wait for answers. "Go!" Logan yelled, pushing Maya ahead of him as they made a mad dash toward the nearest exit. The building seemed to tremble with every step they took, the sound of gunfire now distant but still echoing in the background. They burst through a door and into the alleyway outside. The air was a welcome relief, cool and crisp, a stark contrast to the oppressive heat inside the warehouse. But there was no time to catch their breath. Logan could already hear the sound of engines roaring in the distance. Prescott wouldn't let them get away that easily. "Over here," Maya shouted, grabbing Logan's arm and yanking him toward an old, abandoned van parked at the side of the alley. Its engine sputtered to life with a loud cough as Maya jumped behind the wheel. Logan slid into the passenger seat, his pulse still racing as he buckled up. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Prescott had made it clear that the stakes were higher than they could have imagined. The global chaos he had hinted at wasn't just a threat, it was becoming reality. Maya slammed the gas pedal, the van lurching forward as they sped out of the alley. The sound of pursuing vehicles grew louder, and Logan twisted in his seat, eyes scanning the rearview mirror. Prescott's soldiers were hot on their tail, their vehicles closing in fast. "We need to lose them," Logan said, his voice sharp with urgency. "I'm working on it." Maya snapped back, her grip tightening on the wheel as she swerved to avoid a pothole. The van rattled as it careened down the narrow city streets. Maya was an expert driver, but even she couldn't outrun an entire convoy of armed men. The sound of tires screeching against the pavement echoed in Logan's ears as he tried to think of their next move. Suddenly, a sharp right turn appeared ahead. Maya didn't hesitate, her hands pulling the steering wheel hard. The van skidded around the corner, narrowly avoiding a police car that had been parked on the side of the road. Logan's heart skipped a beat as they narrowly avoided a collision. "That's it. We can lose them in the industrial district," Maya said, her eyes gleaming with determination. "Hold on tight." Logan braced himself as Maya slammed the van into gear, sending it speeding down a series of poorly lit streets lined with old factories and warehouses. The sound of sirens and screeching tires was now almost drowned out by the roar of the engine and the rush of wind outside. They weaved through the narrow alleys, cutting corners and making sharp turns as the pursuing vehicles struggled to keep up. Logan could hear the sounds of their tires slipping, the vehicles skidding on the slick pavement. Maya wasn't just outrunning them, she was outsmarting them. "Almost there," Maya shouted, her voice filled with excitement. Logan's pulse surged as the buildings around them grew taller and more industrial, the streets more desolate. They were getting closer to the abandoned warehouses, where they could disappear into the labyrinth of alleys and escape the pursuing forces. Just as Logan thought they were in the clear, a dark SUV appeared at the end of the street, blocking their path. Maya's eyes widened in realization. "That's Prescott's men," she yelled. "They've got us cornered." But Logan wasn't ready to give up yet. His mind raced, searching for a way out. He spotted a narrow side street just to the right of the SUV. It was a tight fit, but if they could make it through, they might have a chance. "Maya, the alley!" Logan shouted, pointing toward the narrow gap. Maya didn't hesitate. She veered sharply to the right, the van's tires screeching as they barely squeezed through the opening. Logan held his breath as the side mirror scraped against the walls of the alley, but they made it. The SUV couldn't follow. "We're not out yet," Maya said, her voice tight with tension. "We've still got a lot of ground to cover." Logan nodded, but there was a flicker of hope in his chest. They had made it through one obstacle, and if they could keep this up, they might just survive whatever Prescott had planned for them next. The van sped through the maze of industrial backstreets, the sound of their pursuers fading into the distance. Logan glanced over at Maya, who was focused, her jaw set in determination. But just as he thought they might be safe, his phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, his fingers trembling as he read the message that appeared on the screen. You think you've won? This is only the beginning. I control everything. It was Prescott's name, and he was still watching them. The message from Prescott burned into Logan's mind as they continued to speed down the narrow alleyway. You think you've won? This is only the beginning. I control everything. The words haunted him, the weight of their meaning pressing down like a lead blanket. Prescott wasn't just a powerful figure in the business world. He was something more, a puppet master pulling strings they couldn't even begin to understand. Maya's grip on the steering wheel tightened as she maneuvered the van through the winding streets. Her face was set with determination, but Logan could see the strain in her eyes. They were both running on fumes, and the reality of what they were facing seemed to grow more intense with every passing minute. Logan, I don't know how much longer we can keep this up, Maya said, her voice tight with anxiety. Prescott's not going to let us just slip away like this. Logan nodded, his mind racing. He could feel the pressure mounting, the clock ticking down. Prescott's men were relentless, and he knew that this wasn't just about escaping now. It was about finding a way to stop Prescott for good. We need to get out of the city. We need to disappear, Logan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Maya glanced at him, her eyes dark with concern. Where do we even go? How do we hide from someone like Prescott? He has eyes everywhere. Logan didn't have an answer, but his mind was already turning over options. The first thing they needed was a safe place, somewhere off the grid, somewhere Prescott couldn't reach them. They couldn't just keep running. They needed to plan their next move. Maya took a sharp left turn onto a deserted road that led into the outskirts of the city. The van bounced over the uneven pavement, but Maya held the wheel steady. Logan could tell she was as exhausted as he was, but neither of them could afford to slow down. We can try my uncle's cabin, Maya said, breaking the silence. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's isolated. No one knows about it except for a few close family members. If we make it there, we can regroup and figure out what to do next. Logan's mind raced. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was a start. Do you think we can make it that far? Prescott won't stop hunting us. I don't know, but it's our best shot, Maya said, her voice firm. It's going to be hard, but we need a place to breathe and think. We can't keep running forever. Logan took a deep breath, steeling himself. He trusted Maya more than anyone, and if she thought the cabin was their best option, he would follow her lead. But he knew deep down that this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a battle for something bigger, something that could change everything. As the van rumbled along the deserted road, Logan pulled out his phone, glancing at the screen once more. Prescott's message still stared back at him. I control everything. What did that even mean? Did Prescott have eyes on every corner? Was there no place left where they could be safe? We'll figure it out, Logan muttered to himself. We have to. But just as he pocketed the phone, a flash of headlights appeared in the rearview mirror. Logan's stomach dropped. Not again, he said, his voice barely audible. Maya's eyes flicked to the mirror, her face pale. We've got company. Logan turned in his seat, his heart racing. A black SUV was tailing them, the headlights cutting through the darkness like a predator closing in on its prey. It wasn't a coincidence. Prescott's men had found them again. Can you lose them? Logan asked, his voice tinged with panic. Maya's jaw clenched, her hands gripping the wheel tighter. I'll try. She floored the accelerator, the van lurching forward as they sped down the winding road. Logan could hear the engine roar behind them, the pursuing vehicle gaining ground. The SUV was relentless, and it wasn't going to let them go that easily. Logan turned his head again, watching as the gap between them and the SUV shrank. He knew they had only one option. Make it to the cabin and fast. Maya, just get us there. Logan urged. We don't have much time. Maya's eyes flicked to him for a brief moment, her expression fierce. Hang on. She swerved the van to the right, taking a sharp turn that sent them skidding on the gravel. Logan's breath caught as the van threatened to spin out of control, but Maya kept it steady. The SUV behind them wasn't so lucky. It tried to follow the same turn, but the driver lost control, and the vehicle crashed into a tree with a loud crash. Logan glanced back, his heart pounding. The SUV was out of commission, but they couldn't stop. Not yet. We need to go faster, Logan said, his voice shaking. Maya didn't need any more encouragement. She pushed the pedal to the metal, the van accelerating as the headlights of the city began to fade in the distance. They were leaving the chaos behind, but they both knew that Prescott's reach was far greater than they could imagine. It was only a matter of time before he found them again. As the road stretched on, the night air growing colder, Logan felt a sense of fleeting hope. They were almost there, almost out of reach. But just as he allowed himself to relax for a split second, a new message appeared on his phone screen. It was from an unknown number, but the message was clear. You can run, but you can't hide. We know where you're going. Logan's breath hitched. They were being hunted again. But this time, it felt different. This time, Prescott wasn't just playing games. He was getting closer. The van's engine hummed softly as Maya guided it down the winding dirt road, the trees closing in on both sides. They had left the city far behind them, but the feeling of being hunted still clung to Logan like a shadow. His heart raced with every rustling leaf, every creak of the van's suspension. Prescott's men were always a step away, lurking in the darkness. Logan glanced at Maya, her face illuminated by the faint glow of the dashboard lights. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the wheel, her eyes sharp and focused, but Logan could tell the toll of the chase was wearing on her. She hadn't said a word since the crash, and Logan couldn't blame her. They were both exhausted, physically and mentally, but there was no time for rest. How much farther? Logan asked, his voice tight with the weight of the question. Maya took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving the road. Just a few more miles, she replied, her voice steady despite the anxiety that Logan knew she was hiding. The cabin's up ahead. We'll be safe there. Logan nodded, trying to push the panic gnawing at him down. They needed this. A safe place. A break from the chaos that had consumed their lives since Prescott's threats had started. But as the van trundled on, he couldn't shake the feeling that Prescott's reach was endless. That even in the middle of nowhere, they wouldn't be safe. They rounded a bend in the road, and there it was, the cabin. It stood in stark contrast to the trees surrounding it, a small, rustic structure nestled in the heart of the woods. It was exactly as Maya had described, isolated, hidden, the perfect place to lay low for a while. Logan exhaled in relief. We made it, he said, feeling a sense of cautious optimism rising in his chest. Maya slowed the van as they approached the cabin, the headlights illuminating the front porch, where a rocking chair creaked in the breeze. The cabin itself looked ancient, the wood darkened with age, but it was sturdy, a place to survive. But just as she was about to pull up to the front, a sharp, chilling sound pierced the air, the unmistakable sound of a phone vibrating in the quiet of the van. Logan's pulse quickened as he reached for his phone, the screen glowing faintly in the darkness. His heart sank when he saw the new message. You really thought you could escape? We know exactly where you are. Logan's breath caught in his throat. Prescott's men were closing in. They hadn't made it far enough. This wasn't a safe place. They had been found again. What is it? Maya asked, her voice tinged with dread. Logan held up the phone, showing her the message. Her face went pale, the last remnants of hope fading from her expression. Not here, Maya muttered, more to herself than to Logan. We can't stay. They found us. Logan felt a rush of frustration. It was happening again. Just when they thought they had a moment of peace, the darkness was closing in. They weren't safe anywhere. Then we need to move, Logan said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. We can't wait for them to show up. But Maya wasn't listening. Her eyes were darting around the cabin, her mind working quickly. We need a backup plan, she said, her voice sharp. They'll be here any minute. We can't just drive away. They'll be tracking us. Logan nodded, feeling the weight of the situation press down on him. They were trapped. Prescott's influence reached everywhere, even here, in the middle of the woods. Do you have a way out of here? Logan asked, his voice hoarse. Maya hesitated for a moment, her gaze flicking to the back of the cabin. Then she nodded, her expression grim. There's an old storm cellar behind the cabin. It's hidden. No one knows about it except my family. We can hide there and figure out what to do next. Logan's heart skipped a beat. It was a chance. A small one, but a chance. "Let's go," he said, opening the van door and stepping out into the cold night air. Maya followed him, moving quickly as they approached the back of the cabin. Logan's mind raced, thinking of all the ways things could go wrong. Prescott's men could be here any minute. They needed to stay ahead of them, stay out of sight. Behind the cabin, hidden beneath a thick layer of vines and moss, was the storm cellar door. Maya grabbed the rusted handle and pulled, revealing a narrow, steep staircase that led down into the dark. "After you," Logan said, glancing around once more to make sure they weren't being watched. Maya didn't hesitate. She descended into the darkness first, Logan following close behind her. The air in the cellar was cool and damp, but Logan didn't care. They were hidden, at least for now. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, Logan's phone buzzed again, the vibration echoing in the quiet space. He couldn't ignore it. The message was waiting for him. "You're not as clever as you think. I always win. See you soon." Logan's stomach turned. Prescott wasn't just playing a game. He was sending a message. They were running out of time. The door above them creaked, the sound of footsteps approaching. Logan's heart raced. Prescott's men were getting closer. They had only moments left before the storm cellar would no longer be a hiding place. Would they escape once again, or would Prescott finally catch up with them? The footsteps above them were slow, deliberate, like someone was savoring the moment of their impending victory. Logan's heart pounded in his chest as he pressed his back against the cold stone wall of the storm cellar. Every inch of him screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. No way to outrun Prescott's men this time. Maya's breath was shallow as she crouched beside him, her hand gripping his arm. "We don't have much time," she whispered urgently. "We need to think of something. Fast." Logan could feel the weight of her words, the pressure bearing down on him. Prescott had found them, and now they were trapped. The storm cellar was small and claustrophobic, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. But it was the only place they had left to hide. "Do you have any idea how many of them are out there?" Logan asked in a hushed voice. Maya bit her lip, her eyes scanning the dark, as if she were mentally mapping out their options. "I don't know. I couldn't tell from the van, but they're never alone, and they don't play by the rules." Logan nodded grimly. Prescott was ruthless. He'd been tracking them for weeks, pushing them from one hiding place to the next. But this time, it felt different. Prescott was determined to finish it, to make sure they couldn't run anymore. A loud bang echoed from above, the door to the cabin slamming open. Logan froze. The men were in. "Stay quiet," Maya urged, pulling Logan further into the shadows of the cellar. She motioned toward the far wall, where an old wooden crate sat. "We can hide behind that." Logan followed her, crouching low to the ground as they moved toward the crate. The footsteps grew louder, now accompanied by hushed voices. They were searching, methodical, moving closer to the cellar. "Do you think they know we're here?" Logan whispered, his pulse racing. Maya's eyes were wide with fear, but she didn't hesitate. "They're looking for something, but they don't know this place like I do. I can lead them away." Logan's mind raced. It was a long shot, but it might be their only chance. "How?" Before Maya could answer, a voice called out from above, cold and precise. "We know you're down there. Come out, and we can make this easy for you." Logan's stomach turned. The offer was a lie, of course. Prescott's men didn't make things easy. They never did. Maya's fingers tightened around his wrist, a signal to stay still. But Logan's mind was already racing, calculating the odds. Prescott's men would keep searching. They wouldn't give up that easily. "We can't just wait," Logan muttered under his breath. "We need a plan." Maya's gaze flicked toward the cellar entrance, then back to Logan. "I've got an idea," she said, her voice low. "But it's risky." Logan felt a spark of hope. "Tell me." She took a deep breath. "There's an old pipe system that runs under the cabin. It leads to the woods. If we can get there, we can escape. But we'll have to move fast." Logan's heart skipped a beat. This was their chance. A way out. "Let's do it," he said, his voice firm with determination. Maya led the way, slipping through the shadows with silent precision. Logan followed closely, every nerve on edge. They reached the far side of the cellar, where the pipes ran along the walls. Maya quickly crouched beside one of the pipes, inspecting it carefully. "This is it," she whispered, pulling out a small metal tool from her jacket pocket. "I just need a moment to pry this open." Logan scanned the cellar entrance, hearing the footsteps above them getting closer. They didn't have much time. He nodded. "Hurry." Maya worked quickly, her hands moving with practiced ease. Logan's mind raced with possibilities. If they could make it through the pipe system, they might have a chance. But if they were caught— "Got it," Maya whispered, pulling the pipe open just wide enough for them to crawl through. "We go together. Stay low and move fast." Logan nodded, his heart pounding as he crouched beside her. The cold air from the pipe system chilled him to the bone as he crawled inside, Maya following right behind him. The tunnel was narrow, the dirt walls pressing in on him from all sides. But he didn't care. Every inch closer to freedom was worth the discomfort. Behind them, the sounds of Prescott's men were growing louder, the search getting closer. Logan's pulse quickened as he pushed forward, keeping his focus on the dim light ahead. Every breath felt like it could be his last, but he pushed through the fear, keeping his mind fixed on the one goal: escape. Maya was just ahead, her body moving through the narrow space with the grace of someone who knew this place too well. Logan followed, trying not to think about the dangers lurking above them. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the end of the tunnel. Maya stopped, peering out into the dark woods beyond. The night was eerily quiet, the only sound the rustling of the trees in the wind. "We're almost there," she whispered. "Just a little further." Logan felt his chest tighten as they crawled out of the pipe and into the open air. They were free, at least for now, but they couldn't afford to stop. Prescott's men were still out there. "Where do we go now?" Logan asked, his voice a mixture of relief and urgency. Maya glanced around, her eyes sharp. "We head for the hills. It's the last place they'll look. We can regroup there." Logan nodded, his resolve hardening. They had a long road ahead of them, and Prescott was still hunting them. But for the first time in a while, Logan felt a flicker of hope. They weren't done yet, and as long as he was breathing, he wouldn't stop fighting. The night was silent, but Logan couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. In the distance, the faint sound of approaching vehicles echoed through the woods. They weren't safe yet. Prescott's men were closer than ever. Would they escape, or would they finally be caught? The dense forest around Logan and Maya seemed to close in on them as they moved swiftly, their footsteps muffled by the thick underbrush. Logan's breath came in quick bursts, his body aching from the sprint. He couldn't afford to slow down. Not now, not when they were so close to freedom. Maya, ahead of him, kept her pace steady, her eyes scanning the woods like a hawk. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting eerie shadows that seemed to follow them as they pushed deeper into the forest. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, made Logan's heart race faster. "They're still coming," Logan said, trying to steady his breath. "How much further?" "Just a little more," Maya replied, her voice calm despite the tension. "We're heading toward the ridge. There's a safe house up there. It's old, but it's the best shot we've got." Logan barely nodded. His mind was racing with the thought of Prescott's men. They had to be getting closer. He could almost hear the distant hum of the trucks in the woods, searching, tracking, closing in on their trail. Prescott wouldn't give up this time, not without a fight, and Logan knew that fight was coming. "We can't let them catch us," Logan said, determination rising in his chest. "We're so close." Maya slowed slightly, turning back to glance at him. Her face was set in a grim expression, but there was something else in her eyes, a quiet strength that Logan found reassuring. "We won't let them catch us," she said firmly. "We just have to stay one step ahead." The sounds of the vehicles grew louder. Logan's heart skipped a beat. They were getting too close. "They've picked up our trail," Maya muttered, her eyes narrowing as she glanced around. "We have to move faster." They pushed forward, moving through the dense forest with renewed urgency. Logan's legs burned, his muscles screaming in protest, but he pushed through the pain. The ridge wasn't far. If they could just make it there. Suddenly, a crackling sound broke the night silence. a twig snapping underfoot. Logan froze, his heart stopping in his chest. Maya's eyes darted around, her hand going to the knife at her side. "They found us," she whispered, her voice tense. Logan's pulse thundered in his ears as he frantically scanned the trees. The sound of the vehicles was unmistakable now. Prescott's men were right behind them. They were surrounded. "Logan, we have to split up," Maya said, her voice urgent. "I'll lead them away. You keep going. Get to the safe house. I'll meet you there." Logan's eyes widened in disbelief. "No, we're not splitting up. We stick together." Maya shook her head, her eyes blazing with determination. "It's the only way. If they catch us together, we're both done. You can make it. I know you can. Just get to the safe house. I'll be fine." Logan opened his mouth to argue, but Maya was already backing away, her eyes locked on his. "Go," she hissed. "Don't waste time. Go now." Without waiting for a response, Maya turned and disappeared into the underbrush, moving swiftly and silently. Logan stood frozen for a moment, torn between following her or running for his life. But he didn't have a choice. Prescott's men were too close, and if he stayed any longer, they would both be caught. With a final glance in Maya's direction, Logan turned and bolted toward the ridge. The world around him seemed to blur as he sprinted through the forest, his breath ragged in his chest. Every step was a race against time, a race for survival. The sounds of the vehicles were growing louder, but Logan couldn't slow down. He couldn't afford to stop. The ridge was in sight now, a dark silhouette against the sky. Logan pushed himself harder, his legs burning with every stride. His mind was focused solely on reaching the safe house. He could only hope Maya was right, that she could draw the men away long enough for him to make it. His foot caught on a root, sending him tumbling to the ground. Pain shot through his knee, but he barely had time to react before he pushed himself up and kept running. He could feel the air getting thicker, the pressure mounting with every step. He reached the ridge just as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. The safe house was nestled at the edge of the cliff, a small cabin that had seen better days. Logan's heart lifted at the sight of it. This could be their last chance. But as he reached the cabin, he froze. In the distance, he saw them. The vehicles. Prescott's men. And Maya. She was standing there, alone, in the clearing between the woods and the cabin, her back to him. Logan's heart dropped into his stomach as he watched Prescott's men close in on her. She hadn't made it. "No!" Logan screamed, his voice raw with panic. Without thinking, he bolted toward her. Maya heard him. Her head snapped around just as one of Prescott's men grabbed her arm, yanking her to the ground. Her eyes widened in horror as Logan charged forward, every instinct telling him to fight, to do whatever it took to save her. But there were too many of them. Logan reached the clearing, his body slamming into one of Prescott's men. The impact sent the man flying, but the others quickly surrounded him, forcing him back. "Get back, kid!" one of them shouted, raising a gun. "This is over." Maya's eyes met Logan's, her voice a soft whisper carried by the wind. I told you to run." But Logan wasn't listening. He couldn't. "Let her go," he shouted, his hands balled into fists. "You want me? Take me. Leave her out of this." One of the men laughed coldly. "You're just a kid. You don't know what you're up against." Logan's heart raced as he stood his ground. He was outnumbered, outgunned, but he wouldn't let them take Maya. Not after everything they had been through. The man with the gun aimed it at Logan, a cold smirk on his face. "You'll regret this." But just as he pulled the trigger, a sharp crack echoed through the woods. A single shot rang out. Logan froze, the sound of the gunshot reverberating in his mind. Had it been fired at him? At Maya? The world seemed to slow as he stared at the men surrounding them, waiting for the answer. The sound of the gunshot hung in the air like an ominous warning. Logan's heart pounded in his chest as he froze, his gaze locked on the men surrounding him and Maya. The cold barrel of the gun was still aimed at him, but his mind raced, unable to comprehend what had just happened. For a moment, everything stood still. Then, a sharp voice broke the silence. "Drop the weapon." Logan's eyes snapped toward the voice. A figure emerged from the trees, moving with military precision, his movements swift and deliberate. A shadow in the morning light, the man was dressed in tactical gear, a rifle slung across his back. Logan's breath caught in his throat. He didn't recognize this person, but the authoritative tone in his voice made it clear that he was in charge. The gunman who had threatened Logan hesitated, the barrel of his weapon shaking slightly. "Who the hell are you?" he growled, clearly thrown off by the sudden appearance of the newcomer. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button, sending a signal that seemed to reach every one of Prescott's men. The surrounding group stiffened, some lowering their guns, others glancing nervously at their leader. The balance of power had shifted in an instant. "Drop it, or we'll drop you," the mysterious figure repeated, his voice laced with an unmistakable authority. Logan watched, heart still racing, as the standoff continued. The tension was thick enough to cut through with a knife. His eyes flicked to Maya, who was still on the ground, her face pale but determined. She had been right all along. They couldn't afford to be caught. A second passed, then another, and finally, the man with the gun lowered it, his hands trembling. "Who sent you?" the gunman barked, his voice full of confusion and anger. The stranger gave a small, knowing smile. "Does it really matter?" he asked. "You're outnumbered, and you've lost." With that, a loud whistle cut through the air, and more figures emerged from the trees, converging on the clearing. Logan's heart soared as he saw the backup. More men, but these were different. They were not Prescott's goons. They were allies, ready to take control of the situation. The leader of Prescott's men backed up a step, clearly rattled. "We're not done here," he spat. "You'll regret this." But the mysterious figure only shook his head. "No, you will." In one swift motion, the newcomer pulled a handgun from his belt and aimed it at the ground, firing once to signal the others to advance. The remaining goons, those who had not dropped their weapons, hesitated. The remaining fight drained from them as they realized they were outmatched. Maya, now on her feet, breathed a sigh of relief. She quickly moved toward Logan, her eyes scanning the situation. "Who are these people?" she whispered to him, her voice barely audible over the commotion. Logan didn't answer immediately. He was still processing everything. The shock of the gunshot, the tension in the air, the sudden arrival of their saviors. It was all too much to take in at once. But as the last of Prescott's men were taken into custody by the new group, Logan finally turned to the stranger who had saved them. His curiosity was burning. The man gave a small nod in acknowledgement, but before Logan could speak, Maya stepped forward. "Thank you," she said, her voice steady but filled with gratitude. "You saved us. But who are you?" The stranger smiled, the first genuine expression of warmth on his face. "The name's Jackson," he said, his voice calm. "I was sent by a mutual friend." "Mutual friend?" Logan asked, confusion flooding his mind. "Who?" "Let's just say we're on the same side," Jackson cut him off. "And it's about time you two got the help you needed." Logan looked from Jackson to Maya, his mind still spinning. "But who sent you?" he repeated. Jackson's eyes twinkled, a knowing gleam in them. "A man who never gives up on his people," he said simply. "A man who sees potential, even when others don't." Logan's breath caught in his throat as the realization hit him like a bolt of lightning. "Elon Musk," Logan whispered. Jackson's smile widened. "Smart kid," he said. "He's been watching your every move. And now, so have we." Before Logan could react, Maya's eyes widened in shock. "Elon Musk? You mean, he sent you?" "Yes," Jackson confirmed. "Elon Musk has been aware of your situation for a while now. He's been following your progress, and he knows how dangerous Prescott is. He's been planning for this moment." Logan stared at Jackson, his thoughts racing. Elon Musk. The name still felt surreal to him, like something out of a dream. How had it all come to this? From being just a boy with an unshakable refusal to lose to being involved in something so much bigger than himself. "Come on," Jackson said, snapping Logan from his thoughts. "Let's get you to safety." Logan didn't argue. He followed Jackson and Maya through the forest, the weight of the night finally starting to lift. They were free, for now. But as they walked toward the safe house, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest part of this journey was still to come. Elon Musk had been watching. He had been prepared. And now, with the danger of Prescott's men behind them, Logan couldn't help but wonder, what was next? As the cabin came into view, Logan glanced over at Maya. She met his gaze with a small, reassuring smile, but there was no mistaking the gravity in her eyes. They were in deeper now than ever before, and there was no turning back. Logan and Maya's lives had just taken a sharp turn into a world of power, danger, and untold possibilities. But one thing was certain. The boy who refused to accept losing had just begun his true journey. What awaited him, no one could say. But in his heart, he knew it wasn't over yet. The game had only just started.